Oh, this place is thoroughly dark, dank, and disgusting. Let's get this generator running so we can get the hell out of here. Oh, come on. Alright, well, you get a bullet to the head. Alright, let's see. Where was I? Another one? You have to be kidding me. Okay, third time's a charm. I've got this. Okay, good. Also good. Son of a bitch. Like a regular Barracuda, but only more acidic. Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about The Last of Us. I figured as I was going to be making a video in part 2, I should redo the original video. I've learned a thing or two since making that original video, and that wasn't exactly perfect. But you know, when I started this channel, my goal was to mostly make dick jokes.
This son of a bitch is huge. It's big.
Alright, mission accomplished. Let's start the video. So what the heck is The Last of Us? The best way to describe it is that it's a conceptual mashup of 1985's Day of the Dead and The Road from 2009. Now fast forward 20 years into a pandemic, and humanity is being wiped out, and there's cordyceps-infected monsters everywhere. Said monsters were once people, but were infected by the cordyceps fungus via a bite or by breathing in spores. Once a person's infected, they turn into a mindless killing machine. Kinda like Black Friday. My main point is when you combine a terrifying premise like this with the usual quality from Naughty Dog, you get something that's magnificent. So let's start by asking, what's good about The Last of Us? First is the game's theme, which is a mixture of action, horror, and suspense. For example, let's look at the opening sequence where we play as Joel's daughter, Sarah. We see Sarah wake up in her room and she begins to search the house. We search Joel's bedroom and we hear an explosion in the distance. We head downstairs and Joel is nowhere to be found. A dog can be heard barking outside, followed by a yelp. Joel comes running into the house covered in blood, who is then followed by an infected neighbor. There's a lot of scenes like this in-game which capture and hold a player's attention. The game will also transition back and forth from intense to quiet scenes near perfectly. You really have to hand it to the game for being so great. For the second positive, the game is nearly perfect in terms of overall design. The length of the game is 10 hours, which feels just right. It's long enough to maintain a focused narrative and avoids feeling like it's drawn out. We'll come back to that in the next video. In terms of aesthetics, the forested area in the second act is by far my favorite. The other areas in game are also super high in detail. The Last of Us excels when it comes to showing off real-world locations. You know, I'm pretty sure the giant bottomless pit in downtown Boston is bigger than the one in-game, but hey, I'm glad they took a stab at it. The third big positive is The Last of Us' sound design. The audio cues during fights are huge. For Infected, it makes it way easier to tell how far away instant death is. Too close, oh god. And then there's the voice acting. Joel is voiced by Troy Baker, Ellie is voiced by Ashley Johnson, and Nolan North's acting is amazing as always. I didn't even realize it was him until I looked it up. Now when you combine the dialogue with the game's sound effects, it really comes to life. The explosions, for example, are just so damn satisfying. The last big positive is combat. The whole thing is third person, and it's best described as visceral. We also need to talk about Ellie. You'd think the game is one big escort mission, but Ellie is actually invisible to enemies during gameplay. As an added bonus, she'll take out an enemy every once in a while. On that same note, the enemy artificial intelligence is fun to fight, but it's not perfect. For difficulty, The Last of Us is not a forgiving game.
Put the boots to him, medium style.
I enjoy higher difficulty games, and usually The Last of Us is pretty fair. I will say with certainty, when you make a mistake, you better get ready to die. Like a lot. Like seriously a lot. So what do we do when we're not dying? We explore, gather materials, craft stuff, listen for danger, burn things, and travel to an object in the distance, of course. You know, typical Naughty Dog stuff. Every once in a while exploring, you'll find a door which can only be opened using a shiv. These always contain very useful items. Those items are used in a crafting system which is simple and easy to understand. On the listening side of things, Joel's ears function as a type of radar through walls. They're so sensitive, they can hear your nightmares. Now, I don't have a lot of negatives for The Last of Us, but on the PlayStation 4, the remastered version has some weird stuff going on. For example, this can happen with lighting. The camera will hang up on objects sometimes. Enemies will have weird running animations. Sometimes this happens. Sometimes there's no death animation. Sometimes chairs will fly.
Don't leave me to turn.
Sometimes scripted events are hilarious.
What do you want to do?
He's dead. Molotov cocktails will magically 180 and return to their point of origin. You get the idea. I think a lot of this has to do with the conversion from PS3 to PS4, but keep in mind these are all minor issues relative to the overall final product. Let's dive into weapons. There are 9 primary ones made available to us. The first, of course, is a handgun.
Boom! Headshot!
Next is a revolver. Oh, sorry, we don't take prisoners. After that, we have a hunting rifle. I'm almost certain it's a magical rifle. You can shoot multiple times without even touching the bolt. Then there's the bow. I feel like a subpar Robin Hood. We, of course, have a pump shotgun. Where's the damage? On a similar note, we have a small shotgun named Shorty. I think we can safely say it's really good at launching corpses. Then we have El Diablo. What is with Naughty Dog and scope revolvers? There's also an assault rifle. Better hope your opponent's not wearing armor, because it basically does nothing to them. And lastly, we have the flamethrower.
Now you know what you have to do. Burn the house down. Burn them all!
The melee combat is worth talking about as well, as Joel hits like a sack of hammers. Melee weapons are also quite fun. Unfortunately, Joel's swings don't always connect. Come on. Come on. There we go. I will say it really sucks when your super special instant kill melee weapon hits a wall and breaks. But I tell you, when it does connect, it works really well. Surprise! As mentioned earlier, we also have craftable items that are essential for killing more powerful enemies. If you plan things just right, you can do some neat tricks with the Molotovs. Just keep in mind things can get a bit out of hand. I think we need more fire.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
You do need to be careful though. Did he just light that and put it back in his pocket? The other super useful item are bombs, which are just way too much fun. It's really nice that Molotovs always draw an armored infected, which is prime time to follow up with an immediate bomb. Chaining them together is devastating. One last thing for weapons is I need to talk about Joel's skill set. I always get mixed signals. At times, he can be a literal ninja. He can even choke out a dude in 5 seconds flat, so he's clearly seasoned. At the same time, Joel's aim at the start of the game is horrendous. I would have thought his aim would have been decent considering he mentions previous experience with the starting pistol. At least this makes the first upgrade choice super easy. I mean, there's only 3 upgrades that really matter. The first is precision aiming, the second is stronger shivs, and the third is a health increase. I really like how the upgrade system is based on proven science. Ah yes, nothing like ingesting randomly found pills. What's the worst that could happen?
I got a wicked boner.
Let's take a look at the enemies of The Last of Us. You're an easy target running directly at an enemy. You think you're funny, don't you? So there's 2 main types of enemies in The Last of Us. First is humans, which use melee, firearms, and Molotovs. Some even wear armor. Damn shame it's not fire retardant. Unfortunately, we are also flammable. I notice sometimes the enemy scripted dialogue can't be interrupted.
Not today. You?
How did you not hear that?
What was that?
Okay, there we go. I found it really annoying no matter how you headshot someone wearing a helmet, they would always require a second headshot to kill them. Further to this point, I kind of feel like the game was designed to mess with players when you have the perfect headshot lined up. It's kind of annoying as the enemies just magically know when to dodge or to shoot you to avoid their immediate death. The second set of enemies that we have to deal with are the infected. There are 4 types we'll encounter in game. The first are called runners, they're freshly infected. This is why I hate helmets. Then there's stalkers. Good lord, I hate that sound. At least they're easy to kill. Then there's the iconic clickers. Let's just say hugging them is a bad idea. Lastly, we have the bloater, which is the most evolved form of the infected. What's the best way to describe them? You know, sometimes the infected are awfully polite. They'll pause and wait before pouncing on Joel. I've already beaten this topic to death, but God, I really love Molotovs. They're great for dealing with infected. Why are all these candles screaming? Let's talk about the plot without spoilers. The writing and overall plot of The Last of Us is awesome. It focuses on a father-daughter bond, and it's relatable in many ways. It's pretty understandable why HBO is making this into a TV show. At the time of this recording, it hasn't been released yet, so hopefully it's good. Please keep in mind when I'm talking about the first game, I have to completely ignore the second game. The reason for this is similar to Season 8 of Game of Thrones or the new Star Wars movies. A bad sequel can do some serious damage to the integrity of the previous entries in a series. Part 2 almost made me wish Naughty Dog never bothered to create a sequel to The Last of Us. Good lord, maybe Valve knew what they were doing when they stopped making Half-Life. Okay, that's the end of that. Let's jump into spoilers. Please skip to the timestamp above if you want to avoid them. There are 5 acts in The Last of Us. The opening act sets up Joel's backstory, introduces Ellie, and lays out the main objective. This first stretch involves a short trip across Boston to deliver Ellie to a group called the Fireflies. In the middle of our journey, we find out that Ellie is actually immune to the cordyceps infection and could be the key to finding a cure. We can all understand Joel's partner, aka Tess, is a bit excited with ending the world-crippling plague. Speaking of crippling, I need to mention Joel's backstory is a 10 on the tragic scale. His first experiences with the infected are terrifying, and the loss of his daughter is so heavy. One key thing to mention is earlier that same evening, Sarah gifted a watch to Joel. 20 years later, Joel is still wearing that same watch, even though it's broken, which symbolizes how he'll never forget her. On a lighter note, if it wasn't for Joel's brother Tommy, this would have been a very short game. Back in the present day, we reach the drop-off location for Ellie, but we find nothing but dead fireflies. But wait, there's more. Tess has been infected. She gives Joel her dying wish, and basically guilts him into delivering Ellie to the fireflies no matter the cost. This results in the 2 of them traveling across the US to find them. Let's do a quick check on Google. Oh, thank God, it's only 3,229 miles. As you might expect, the second act involves Joel sourcing a vehicle from the town of Lincoln. Overall, the act is solid, and it flows really well. We search for our buddy Bill, he ends up rescuing us, and we hunt for a car battery, but the most likely source turns out to have already been stolen. Oh, and to make things worse, we run into an infected horde. In the midst of running away, we find Bill's best friend's corpse with a working truck. Seems pretty Deus Ex Machina, but whatever, we got a vehicle. The one funny thing I need to mention was Bill saying,
"Past this gate, it's all new territory to me."
and literally 3 minutes later randomly says,
Hold up. I got a key for that gate.
well, which is it, Bill? Is it new territory or not? After a bit of traveling, Joel and Ellie arrive in Pittsburgh, which is where the third act takes place. The first section of which involves a set of skirmishes with a group of scavengers which have an armored Humvee. Probably a good time to mention this, but all types of fuel go bad after 5 years, so I have no idea how any vehicle or generator functions in this game. Whatever. Moving on. I really need to touch on one section in the first bit of Pittsburgh where Ellie saves Joel from being strangled. I've always thought it was really dumb how Joel wasn't immediately grateful after Ellie saved his life. The whole thing is just void of logic and only serves as a simple tool for character development. I mean, we get it. Joel treats Ellie like cargo for the first half of the game and later he has a change of heart. I don't know, this was just too much of a stretch.
And you just hang back like I told you to.
After that, the remainder of the third act is spent teaming up and collaborating with two brothers named Henry and Sam. Both are great characters as they're honest and humble. For the longest time, I thought the toy Sam was looking at in the toy store would get him killed, but the game did a good job subverting our expectations and subtly infecting him. Henry's immediate suicide after failing to protect his brother was brutal. You know, that's the problem with good writing. No one's safe. Moving on, the fourth act is my favorite. It starts off with a reunion with Joel's brother who directs us to travel to the University of Colorado to meet the remaining Fireflies. We arrive and search the place to find out once again no one's left. After a little more looking around, we find a recording which tells us they are now situated in Salt Lake City. Time to leave, right? Wrong. Joel is attacked and pushed from a corridor balcony which impales him on a piece of rebar.
'Tis but a scratch.
This results in him and Ellie laying low for a couple weeks while healing. During this period, Ellie has to take care of him by foraging and hunting. This is when we run into David. He's an awesome secondary villain. He fails to convince Ellie to join his group. He then has his men hunt her down and try and capture her. She's then caught by David and taken prisoner. Joel coincidentally wakes up and interrogates two of David's men for her location. I love how the one guy just caves and says where Ellie is, and the other one just gets straight up murdered.
That's all right. I believe in it.
No, wait!
At the same time, Ellie bites David's hand and escapes. This transitions into a boss fight where we need to sneak around a restaurant and shank David from behind. At the same time, Joel is making his way through the town to rescue Ellie. You'd think he winds up saving Ellie from David, but he doesn't make it in time. Ellie is pinned down by David, but manages to get a hold of his machete. She then rapidly cuts away at his face until Joel stops her. He swiftly consoles her and they immediately depart the town. After going through both games, I can say hands down this is my favorite scene in the series. The build-up and payoff is fantastic.
It's me.
He tried to...
Oh, baby girl. It's okay.
Lastly, we have the final act where Joel delivers Ellie and accomplishes his goal. After turning Ellie over, we learn that she'll have the infected portion of her brain removed to find a cure. We are also told she will not survive the procedure. Joel then rebels and fights his way through the hospital to save her. Quick note, Joel's motivation for this action makes a lot of sense. He views Ellie as a surrogate daughter and can't stand the thought of losing her like Sarah. However, on the other hand, Joel is choosing to doom humanity by rescuing her. It's with this point of view I could argue Joel is the main villain of The Last of Us. He puts Ellie and himself first and sacrifices the one chance they have to end the infection. Where were we? Right. Joel bursts into the operating room and we discover they haven't started the procedure yet. The surgeon grabs a knife to stop Joel, but is quickly shot and killed. Joel then grabs Ellie and attempts to escape. After reaching a nearby elevator, we head down only to be stopped by the leader of the Fireflies. After a bit of back and forth, Joel proclaims they'll simply come after her, and he shoots the leader in the head. We then fast forward to Joel and Ellie arriving at the outskirts of Jackson City in Wyoming. Ellie stops and pressures Joel to tell her what happened in Salt Lake City. Joel lies to protect her and tells Ellie there were others just like her and that she wasn't needed. He swears to her this is the truth, and the game ends. Looking back, I will say the plot overall is really good. There aren't any parts that felt unnecessary. The theme of someone becoming like family and how you would sacrifice everything to save them is powerful. I would like to think The Last of Us Part 1 is about acting what a person thinks is right, no matter the cost, whereas the second game is about consequences and the destructive nature of revenge. We'll dive a bit further into this in my next video on the second game. So, in summary, when you combine all the aspects of The Last of Us, it's truly a top-tier game. The plot, the gameplay, the sound design are simply a cut above the rest. I'm going to be sticking with my original score, and I'm going to be giving The Last of Us an A+. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate you watching until the end of the video. And lastly, but most importantly, I hope you all have a great day.
What's going on here?
Come, join us.
Oh, okay.